What you are about to discover has nothing to do with willpower or with simply ignoring your feelings. It isn't about forcing yourself into a fake, relentlessly positive attitude or battling every negative thought that arises in your mind. The true key to ensuring that nothing and no one can affect you anymore lies in something much deeper. A hidden principle that most people overlook because they search for solutions outside of themselves, failing to realize that real change can only come from within. Perhaps you have wondered why there are those who, no matter what life throws at them, move through existence with an unshakable calm. They face crises, endure losses, and navigate moments of uncertainty without ever losing their center. Meanwhile, others are easily overwhelmed, trapped in the whirlwind of their own emotions and reactions, even during the most ordinary situations. Is it a matter of luck or personality, or is there some hidden principle that separates those who have mastered their inner world from those who remain enslaved by it? The error most people make is believing that reality is objective, that events occur independently of our interpretations, and that our emotions are simply inevitable responses to external happenings. Yet nothing in your experience is raw or unfiltered. Everything is perceived through the lens of your beliefs, the emotional baggage accumulated over years, and the unconscious programming you never chose. It is as if you are constantly wearing tinted glasses that color everything you see, so that no matter what lies before you, your perception is distorted by fear, resentment, guilt, or any number of limiting beliefs. And if that filter is warped by these negative emotions, then the world will in turn mirror that distortion back at you. It's not that life is inherently unfair, rather it is that you cannot see beyond what you have ingrained inside yourself. But here lies the key that so few have ever revealed. It is not about avoiding pain or escaping difficult emotions. It is not about becoming numb or indifferent, nor is it about pretending that everything is fine when it isn't. Instead, the secret to making nothing and no one afflict you lies in transforming the meaning you assign to every experience, in reprogramming the way you interpret reality, and in learning to convert every emotion into a tool for personal growth rather than a weight that anchors you in the past. Reality isn't something imposed upon you. It is something you interpret and give meaning to. And when you realize that, when you learn to take control of your interpretation, you discover that you can choose how you respond to any situation in the very moment it unfolds. This realization that you are the one who determines your inner state frees you from the perpetual turmoil of emotional reactivity. Consider for a moment the image of a person moving through life as if they were completely detached from every circumstance. This individual is not impervious to pain or disappointment, but they have learned to see each experience as a transient event, a passing storm rather than an all-consuming catastrophe. They understand that every emotion, whether it is fear, anger, or sadness, is like a wave that rises and eventually subsides, provided you do not cling to it. When you learn to view these emotions as signals from within rather than as reflections of the external world, you begin to reclaim the power that you have always had. Carl Jung described the psyche as an intricate labyrinth where every thought, reaction, and emotion is shaped by deep layers that most of us never consciously explore. The visible part of our mind is just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface lies a vast subconscious realm where past experiences, traumas, insecurities, and unaddressed emotions reside. And everything that you ignore within yourself does not simply vanish. It manifests in your external reality as though it were an inevitable fate. Think about how fear infiltrates your life. Often you might not even notice it as it disguises itself as simple doubt. It might appear when you wonder whether you are good enough to try something new, or when you procrastinate on tasks you deeply desire to pursue because the risk of failure seems too high. In relationships, fear might manifest as an overwhelming need to please, to sacrifice your own desires for the sake of avoiding rejection or loneliness. Jung taught that fear, like any other emotion, is not your enemy. It is a disguised teacher, a signal that there is something within you that still needs to be acknowledged and healed. Yet most people, instead of listening to these internal messages, choose to fight against their emotions. They suppress what they feel, convince themselves they should not be sad or angry, and bury the discomfort with distractions such as work, entertainment, or superficial relationships. But the more you try to silence your emotions, the more persistent they become, haunting the corners of your mind like an unwelcome ghost. Imagine a storm. The wind howls, rain pelts down, and the sky darkens. You might try to push back against the wind or stop the rain by force, but the more you fight, the more exhausted you become. The storm only ceases when you allow it to pass naturally. In the same way, every emotion you experience is just a temporary force, a storm in your mind that will eventually subside if you let it. Yet so many of us remain trapped in an endless cycle of resistance, fighting against the natural flow of our feelings rather than embracing them. What if, instead of fighting your sadness, you simply observed it? What if, rather than hiding your fear, you asked what it was trying to teach you? Every emotion carries a hidden message. Sadness might signal an attachment that no longer serves you. Fear might reveal limiting beliefs that whisper you're not enough. And anger might be a sign that your personal boundaries have been crossed. The transformative moment comes when you learn to see your emotions not as obstacles, but as guides. In that space, instead of being overwhelmed by negative thoughts, you start to question them. You begin to ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to tell me? Where did it come from? What part of my past is still holding me captive? In doing so, you begin to dismantle the tinted glasses through which you've been viewing the world. You start to recognize that every experience, no matter how challenging, holds the potential for growth. And once you learn to transform your internal dialogue, you realize that nothing and no one can affect you in the same way again. When you reclaim the power to choose your response, you become the master of your emotional landscape, free to experience life with clarity and calm. Now imagine that shift in perspective taking root in your daily life, a profound change where every moment becomes an opportunity to observe, to understand, and ultimately to transform the way you experience reality. Picture yourself in a situation that would normally trigger an automatic emotional reaction, perhaps a harsh word from a colleague, a moment of rejection, or even a setback that you previously would have taken as a personal failure. Instead of succumbing to a surge of anger or despair, you pause. You take a deep breath and observe what is happening within you. You ask yourself, what part of me is reacting? Is this response really about what just occurred, or is it echoing something unresolved from my past? By doing this, you begin to see that the external event is merely a trigger, a catalyst that sets off an internal chain of reactions that are entirely under your control. Carl Jung described this state as accessing the silent observer, the part of your consciousness that remains untouched by the chaos of the external world. This inner observer is not the mind that ruminates on past regrets or dreads future outcomes. It is a quiet, unwavering presence that stands as the guardian of your true self. When you tap into this reservoir of inner calm, you realize that you have always possessed the power to shape your experience, regardless of what happens around you. Instead of letting negative emotions dictate your actions, you transform them into tools for growth. Fear becomes a signal to challenge your limitations, sadness becomes a call to release what no longer serves you, and anger becomes a reminder to assert your boundaries. The key is not to escape your feelings, but to harness them, to let them inform and guide you rather than to overpower you. As you begin to reframe your emotional experiences, you notice that the world around you starts to change. The very air seems lighter, and challenges that once loomed large now appear as stepping stones on your journey toward inner freedom. You start to understand that the power of your emotions lies not in their intensity, but in the meaning you assign to them. When you decide to transform your perspective, you free yourself from the invisible chains that have kept you tethered to past traumas and limiting beliefs. Instead of living at the mercy of your repressed feelings, you learn to face them head-on, integrating them into a coherent narrative of growth and self-discovery. Consider the example of someone who has long feared rejection, a fear that has governed every decision, every interaction. This person might have spent years molding their behavior to fit what they believed others expected, sacrificing authenticity for the sake of acceptance. But when they finally learn to look at rejection as a message rather than a verdict, everything changes. They begin to see that the sting of rejection is not a reflection of their intrinsic worth, but a reminder that there is unresolved pain waiting to be addressed. Each rejection becomes a prompt for introspection, a gentle nudge to examine the shadow of their past and to heal old wounds. And as this person embarks on the path of inner work, their fear of rejection dissipates. They no longer allow external judgments to define them, and in doing so, they reclaim a sense of self that is resilient, vibrant, and entirely their own. This process is not instantaneous. It requires patience and persistence. The human mind is a complex labyrinth filled with layers of thought and emotion accumulated over years. Many of these layers were formed unconsciously, and as a result, they influence your behavior without your active awareness. The journey to unshakable serenity involves peeling back these layers one by one, questioning the narratives that have long dictated your reactions, and choosing to replace them with empowering beliefs. When you do this consistently, you begin to notice a profound shift in your reality. You become less reactive, more centered, and ultimately you experience a deep sense of peace that is not contingent upon external circumstances. The final revelation in this transformative process is that nothing and no one has the power to affect you unless you grant them that power. Every negative experience, every moment of distress is an opportunity to practice this truth. When you truly understand that your perceptions shape your reality, you realize that you hold the ultimate key to your emotional freedom. It is not about suppressing or denying your feelings. It is about understanding them, accepting them, and then consciously choosing how to respond. By doing so, you liberate yourself from the endless cycle of reactivity and begin to experience life from a place of profound inner strength. Imagine waking up each day with a quiet confidence, knowing that no matter what challenges come your way, you have the power to navigate them with clarity and calm. Envision a life where the weight of fear, limiting beliefs, and repressed emotions no longer drags you down. A life where you can see the world as it truly is, unclouded by the tinted glasses of the past. That is the promise of transforming your inner world. It is a process that demands courage and relentless introspection, but the rewards are immeasurable. In reclaiming your power to interpret your experiences, you create a reality where nothing and no one can disturb your peace as they once did. You become the silent observer, the master of your own fate, and in that state, true freedom is yours. And so, as you stand at the threshold of this new way of living, ask yourself, are you ready to look within, to question everything you have ever taken as absolute truth, and to embrace the transformative power that lies in your own inner strength? The journey begins now, with each deliberate, conscious choice, as you step into a life where your peace is no longer at the mercy of the world, but is a fortress built from within.